So describe to me where you and your wife got the idea for the ETF, DEMZ, what it stands for, and what's happened since.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for having me on. DEMZ is the ticker. The fund is called the Democratic Large Cap Core Fund. And the idea came about because we launched an app actually in 2017 that allows you to shop according to your politics. So we track Federal Election Commission data. The app is called Goods Unite Us and is free. And we've actually had about 2.5 million users this year. And it shows you the political contributions of the companies that you want to shop with. And in 2020, the app is free, and my investors were like, how are we going to make money? And I ran into somebody talking about ESG. And I, as an environmental lawyer originally, was like, this is bullshit.
You can say that.
Sorry, this is bullshit. There's no outside rating firm that could ever rate any publicly traded company on its environmental performance. They don't even know what their environmental performance is. And then I realized that our data set, which is actually looking at the politics of the C-suite, what are the executives doing with their money, is just as good, if not a better indicator of the values of the company. And
so let me stop for a second. So basically, are you scanning who's in the C-suite, and then are you scanning donation records to sync up the data by which you're making the decisions for the ETF?
Yes. So the ETF has a screen on it that these publicly traded companies, their PACs, their political action committees, and their executives, we aggregate all of their corporate or all of their giving to politicians, and they have to have donated to politicians who are 75% or more Democrat. Over 3 election cycles, so it's 6 years.
I'm going to assume you're a registered Democrat.
Actually, my wife is the progressive. I'm in the middle. This is a data strategy. We're interested in also launching a GOP version. It's all just based on data. There is no subjectivity.
Let me just clarify. When you say your wife is a progressive and you're in the middle, I think as someone who's Gen X here, and older, I am sure I'm older than you. Saying you're in the middle, you can still be a Democrat. Here in New York City, if you say you're a progressive, are you a Democratic socialist? I mean, what is your wife? Is she a socialist?
She's a progressive. She's as progressive. She's a Madison progressive. I like to say I'm a Kentucky Democrat, which makes me a Republican in Wisconsin, and probably pretty close to a Republican in New York, probably.
Yeah, if your wife is a Madison progressive, she's a communist. I mean,
could be. That could be. I wouldn't call her.
Let's get back to the reason we invited you to this is it's interesting to discuss. We had on the founder of the MAGA ETF.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah.
Just for comparison, you have roughly 51 million assets under management. They have roughly 30 million. In assets under management. Your performance, I want to talk about the performance of the ETF and what you're finding. You are just slightly over the last 5 years beating the S&P 500. I did a quick comparison. Is there an appetite? I mean, we always talk about the divisions in the country between conservatives, liberals, Democrats, Republicans. Is there a genuine appetite for this, or was this just more some fun?
There is an appetite. So the issue is, unlike MAGA is constructed much differently than DEMZ. So MAGA is the top 150 donors to Republicans, and they equal weight the portfolio. So they are very energy heavy, as you can imagine, oil and gas and utilities. But we are something different. We are a retirement asset for Democrats. So we are an SPY or a VOO alternative. DEMZ is designed to track the market as closely as possible using only the companies who have contributed more to Democrats. So the beta of DEMZ changes, but since inception is about 1.05. So it's tracking the market. But it has slightly outperformed the market using only the Democratic companies from the S&Ps. So it's the S&P without the GOP. That's our tag.
Well, is it? This is where I got to stop you.
Yeah.
Your wife, the Madison Progressive, the top 10 holdings, 41, almost 42% of your total assets are Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft, Meta, Lam Research. We're talking about Alphabet. We're talking about big tech mega caps, which I think your wife would say are kissing the ass of the GOP president.
That's true.
There's that photo. So how does
so there's a fund called the American Conservative Values Fund, and they basically pick which companies they think are most woke and pull them out of the S&P 500. We don't like any subjectivity. The bottom line is all of the tech companies that you talk about have been bankrolling the Democrats and continue to bankroll the Democrats. And so it's the data. Yes, every single company in the S&P 500 you could look at, and a Democrat could hate it and a Republican could hate it for different reasons. We think that looking at who is in the C-suite and what their politics are is a much better indicator of a company's values than any other data point that's out there. And on the overweight on tech, I have to correct you. So we are overweight on tech because it hasn't rebalanced. So when we rebalance, we have to be within 5% of the sector. And then, of course, tech is killing it. So when we rebalance over the quarter, it goes up our percentage, and then we rebalance. And so we're actually not tech heavy. It is across the spectrum equal weight, or has to be within the sector weightings.
Let's talk about Meta and Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh, Meta, we get a lot of crap for Meta.
Well, but let me ask you, is he playing both sides here, do you think? I mean, it looks that way. On one hand, he's in your ETF and you're doing the data chunking. You're saying that Zuckerberg and Meta are donating heavily to Democratic causes, and yet, there he is standing side by side with the president.
Hey, look at Tesla. They flip-flop all the time. This is why we do three cycles, 3 federal election cycles, because companies placate the current administration always. That's why we have 3 federal election cycles, because otherwise it's just always going to be whoever's in office. However, the data says what it says. And it's actually, I can tell you with Meta, it's not Zuckerberg. He actually doesn't give. It's all the other executives at Meta who are giving the money and making them Democrat. So people get, like, if I talk to somebody on the street about this, they always bring up Chick-fil-A or Hobby Lobby as the big Republican companies. But it turns out they don't actually even give any money to politics. They just happen to be conservatives who run the company. And so the money says what it says. We're tracking publicly available Federal Election Commission data. Again, no subjectivity. And the companies who have given more to Democrats over the last 5 years have outperformed the market. And we actually back tested it before we launched. So we also did analysis from 2016 to 2020. The Democrats also outperformed the market over that time period. Now, does that mean Democrats are better at running companies? That's what the data says, but that's just what the data says.
I'm not sure I'm skilled enough to challenge you on that statement, but I'm sure it should be challenged because you have a small snippet of data that would support your thesis.
10 years is a lot of data. 5 years, sure, every financial advisor ever says, oh, give me another 10 years of data. But the truth is, we've been on the market for 5 years. We've been beating the market net of fees using only the Democratic-run companies in the market for 5 years. And before that, we back tested it, and it also showed that we would outperform the market from 2016 to 2020. And there was an index published on S&P, so this is like all public data. Now, to be clear, some of the overperformance, my understanding is there's some efficiency in going from 500 to 40 or 60. And that could be an explanation of the outperformance. But we've looked at behind the scenes, the Republican companies using the same metric and the companies that give to both, which is about a third, give to both. And the ones that give to both underperform. That's the interesting part to me. The Dems companies do best, and then the Republican companies, and then the ones that give to both are the ones that do the worst.
Yeah, well, that's the worst ring of hell, according to Dante, was for people.
Yeah. So, MAGA is a different strategy, and I give MAGA some credit because they actually use real data. ACVF, the American Conservative Values Fund, launched within 2 days of DEMZ, like 2 days before DEMZ in 2020, and they have 140 million in AUM, and they are just taking out companies that are the most woke. I don't think that's the right approach because they have Microsoft in their top 10 holdings, and Microsoft is very, very dim based on actual giving to politicians. So there's some interesting things going on here, but the truth is I have data, and it's publicly available, that shows that the Democratic companies, the ones who gave 75% or more to Democrats, have outperformed for the last 5 years, even though Trump's been in office, even though, add whatever caveat you want. The data says what it says.
No, I just want to redefine again. The Democrat companies, these are the companies where C-suite officials are giving individually more money to Democrats than
to the PAC. Yeah.
And the PAC.
Correct. Yes. It has to be 75% or more, so it's not close.
So what do you think is going to happen with your ETF? We have a big election in New York City, which all of the pontificators are saying this is going to determine the future, and the future always arrives in ways that nobody can ever anticipate. Let's assume Mr. Mamdani wins. The Democratic Socialists, begin their coordinated attempt at taking over the United States of America. What happened? Well, they actually watch some of the videos, and I'm not talking TikTok bullshit. Yeah. Watch the videos on YouTube that they post. What happens to DEMZ? I think your wife will be smiling. What about you?
Well, I don't know that much about the New York political scene.
You don't want to. It's like stepping into a pile of dung.
I believe you on that front. So the interesting thing about all of these ETFs, DEMZ, MAGA, and ACVF, is it's been at least surprising to me that there's been no tie to elections. So our interest has not gone up or down based on elections at all. Our flow, our volume hasn't really changed based on elections, which is counterintuitive. One would think, Trump gets elected and more people would put money in DEMZ, or Mamdani gets elected and more people would put money in MAGA, but that hasn't been what we've seen. And I don't know if that's why that is, but it's certainly been interesting. Now, to be clear, I think Trump getting elected the second time is what has caused 2.5 million people to use our app to shop according to their politics. But for the quick and short answer to all of this, in my opinion, based on the data, is the Democrats have outperformed the market, but the Republicans have the actual market appetite for these products more than Democrats. And that probably goes back to what you were just saying. Democrats hate all companies, some of them. And so getting them to even believe that any of the S&P 500 are worth their time is challenging.
And I can't imagine the socialists donating much money. Have you ever tracked, as we wrap up, have you ever tracked to see if anyone's given to a DSA candidate or to one of the socialist candidates?
We have all that data. I haven't looked at it specifically, but if it's a federal candidate, we have all the data, and it's in our app. You can go to Goods Unitas and look, or if you send me an email with who you want, I can send you the data. But it's not state elections. It's not,
it's federal.
Mayor. It's just federal. State's hard to do for lots of reasons.
AOC.
Yeah. AOC. You can go see in our app every donor to AOC, every company.
And the app's name again?
Goods Unite Us, and it's free. So it's a rabbit hole, though, because if you're a Republican, you'll look at it and you'll be like, shit, I don't like that this company's donating to DEMZ or vice versa. And so you can't unsee it.